Hello everyone, and welcome back to part 2 of the WARNO multiplayer tutorial series. In the first one, we looked at how to get ready to jump into multiplayer by building a deck. And now we're gonna jump into multiplayer proper and click that rank button and talk about how to survive the first 5 minutes in there. So let's jump right in. So here we are in a WARNO rank game, and we're gonna talk about the setup and the early game, as those are the most decisive parts of a WARNO match, where you can increase your chances of winning or losing the most. And we're gonna play here with the 39th in this ranked. My opponent was playing the 3rd US in this one, and we're gonna talk about the guidelines, how you should set up for your first couple of ranked games, as 39th here is a great example of being a pretty basic division that has a couple of weaknesses which we're gonna go into as well. So start here is recon. You always should start your setup with recon, and you should try to cover as much of the front line as possible with some better optics. We have chosen here the Grenzer, the Modschützen, and the Modradredka to cover each third of the front line. One recon unit over here in this building, one into this building, and one down here. And usually 250 to 300 points into recon that covers your optics parts should be done. If you want to rush, obviously more can be invested into the recon tab for forward deployment and fighting, but for the optics itself, 250 to 300 is usually where you want to be. Sometimes you can go a bit lower if you're a really cheap recon, but usually that's where you want to be there. So let's talk about the second part that I usually start with, and that's AA. With AA, you obviously have to consider what kind of deck you want to play against. If it's more helicopter or more an aircraft deck, and bring up AA to that extent as well. Here, also 200 to 300 points usually is where we want to go, to not overinvest into non-fighting units, into units that don't directly get involved in the front line, but that still protect you from getting bullied by air openers. You always should put AA up second, otherwise you will often forget it. I've seen so many games played where the player forgot to put up AA and then they just got killed by one helicopter or one annoying A-10. And 3rd US here is a deck with quite a lot of strong aircraft, F-15 and co. Pretty annoying. So I went here for Coops to cover against that. They are decent against helicopters as well, a bit slower though. So to protect against helicopters, I invested into a Mi-24V, which doesn't really count as AA directly. It was more of the rest, but we're gonna have a look into that later. So then the next part you want to put down is CVs, where you want to start with 1 or 2 CVs usually in your first couple of ranked matches to not fall behind too much in points. And here we started with 1 TADBV, which has the goal to cap the rear zone, and then I put it here to either go to Alpha or to Delta, depending on which one is easier to get to and where we are winning. To support it, TADBV, okay, obviously a fighting vehicle as well. And then you need to consider where you can win on the map. And as you're up against 3rd US, which is really strong with tanks, winning over here on this map, on Vertigo, not that easy. Tanks obviously pretty strong here. So the decision for me was we're gonna try to win in the more town-focused area with our infantry, and that's where you want to follow up with most of your points. So we have around half of our points spent into CVs, recon, and AA. So we have 750 points left, and of those you want to invest around 500 to 600 onto your strong side, with the rest holding on the weaker side usually. That's what we're gonna do here with the Rapira and the Conquerors. ATGM super key to defend on your weaker side. You usually always want to have at least one ATGM on the side where you're gonna focus on less, whilst the rest of our points here went into infantry and this helicopter. The helicopter was because I also knew that the 3rd US has strong helicopters with the Apaches, and I didn't want to get rushed by an Apache. That's why the Mi-24 VAA here is a great unit to push those away. And as we're gonna see in the start, it will work out here against aero rifles. So let's have a look after we went over deployment into the first 5 minutes of the game let's jump right in. So here we go. The fight has started, and when we have a look onto the enemy side here, the enemy did try to go to the front line with some arrow rifles. Did try to get there with a speed advantage over our relatively weak forward deployment in this division. They also had an Abrams and a Bradley coming towards the center, so yeah, playing over here would be hard, so good decision to not overinvest into Alpha and Bravo. And then a good bit of infantry to follow up all the air rifles into the center. And here our helicopter comes into play, going relatively aggressively forward to try to check out what the situation will be. If the enemy sends in F-15s, you want to be able to fly low. Helicopters, everything that rushes forward is something that you need to micro constantly to see when the first contact will be. And here we caught the enemy red-handed. We got their air rifles on the drop. So the Mi-24 here really paying off, getting one of the catches here, hitting one of the Blackhawks. Unfortunately, misses the next two missiles, but one kill here, more than enough. Baits out the F-15. F-15 not quite strong enough, and we have the Coops already pushing them away, getting the hit in here. That's why I went for the Coops. Pushing F-15s away was the main goal. Enemy still has air rifles now everywhere, so we want to be careful here. And yeah, Conquerors coming along here, getting over to this part of the map. Saperis and Motostrelkis getting into the buildings over here to contest this zone. As I had the helicopter close by, I knew these air rifles can't easily move. I was a bit overeager here. You should be careful with your helicopters. Have them fly low or a bit further back than I did to not get them killed by stingers as easily. That was a mistake for sure. And yeah, then I realized, okay, I saw the Bradleys thanks to the Grancers here. I knew getting over here with the tank wouldn't be as easy. But if I move it quickly, I will be able to get in here, get the zone captured. So TADBVK had the job of getting in here and capturing this zone. And that's really something that you have to keep in mind. Always keep your early CV alive, especially if you use a tank. Don't risk it too far. Coop saves it against any planes right now. F-111 HE already coming in. So that is the protection there. Having a smoke here pretty key as well, obviously. But you don't want to lose your CVs early. It puts you too far back in the tick. So don't play risky with them. Plus, also, obviously, investing into them is pretty expensive as well. Enemy here coming in with bombs. We can dodge that. But that means with the investment into an F-111 and F-15, they have invested a lot into air. So I know my ground forces should be stronger, investing into TADBVs here, more follow-up units for the front line. You want to strengthen your front line usually at the beginning and invest into artillery later. So yeah, we're in a pretty good spot here, and that's how you want to set up your opener, basically. Get into the zone that you want to contest. We're only down to a +1 tick. That's because the enemy has 2 here, but yeah, getting an LGB out, enemy overextended. We know the F-15 is out. They most likely won't have a second one. So the MiG-27 here having an easy time, killing off an M1A1. And with that, we're in a massive advantage already here in the early game. And that one did lead to a victory in the long run as the early game advantage spiraled out of control. We're gonna go into more mid-games scenarios and how to play the mid-game and what to focus on there in the upcoming videos. So if you don't want to miss them, leave a follow, leave a subscription, and see you next time, guys. Bye-bye, and have a great day.